All right. Good day, everyone. How is everyone today? I hope everyone's doing well and enjoying these cooler temps that we've been having. Let's go ahead and get this meeting kicked off. We have uh, a little bit to churn through today. Bear with me. We have a few topics that we're going to hit, but I hope that it will help give more understanding and insight as to the direction that we're headed and where this is all going for accessibility and what this is going to look like in the future. So with that, I will go ahead and give Kara the floor so she can talk about the branded toolkits update.
Okay, and we do have our friends at DGS here, so if they want to add anything, please let me know. But we had been receiving some questions about wanting to kind of know a little bit about branded toolkits and what the process was. So we met with our printing services folks at DGS yesterday, and they were great. And I wanted to share with you some of the information that they discussed, and then really double down on some things for you all that you need to think about as we start to see these branded toolkits come, or these accessible toolkits kind of come to life. So right now they're estimating that the total for the enterprise wide is going to be about 350 to 377 man hours to complete them. That's with 23 departments, 27 commissions and agencies, 22 paired logos, and then we all love our secondary logos, 209 secondary logos. Many of you probably, hopefully, filled out their form stack that requested that was where they were trying to figure out to make sure that they knew exactly what every agency needed in their toolkit. As far as secondary logos, for instance, we at DDA are no longer DIDD, but since we created our toolkit originally back in the day, we have a couple of areas where we have renamed or merged some divisions, and they had secondary logos, and we didn't need those anymore. So we're able to clean that up as well. They are working on this, and they expect that they will have all of the toolkits completed by January of 2026. Just so you know, the Department of General Services will reach out to you when they do have your toolkit completed. So you're not going to just have it uploaded and then not know that it's there. They are going to let you know that their toolkit is completed. A couple of things I really want to stress here is when your toolkit is completed, you need to be advising, well, yourself and also all of your agency folks to get rid of the non-branded templates. We all know how easy it is to grab something and start to, whether it's an old press release that's going to be similar to another one and use that to start the next one. We know how much that happens. For instance, I got caught, I guess, maybe a couple of years ago, accidentally using a template that had like the TM instead of the R, or one of the ways around, because I had an old logo still saved in my files from when the branding first happened back in 2015. So really making sure that people get rid of all their inaccessible templates once their new toolkit is ready, so that they are using the new toolkit going forward, and we're not thinking that we're using something accessible and then we're not using something accessible. So really just wanting to make sure that everyone does that. And then two, they still have agencies that they have not heard from. And while they're not going to leave these agencies hanging, if you have secondary logos, if you have things you need in your toolkit that are outside of what the standard things are, they're not going to know that. So you're going to get the basics. So really make sure that you are filling out that branding toolkit update if you have not done so. Otherwise, you might be surprised when you're like, what about all of these secondary logos and all of these things that we had that we needed? They don't know that unless you tell them. So please make sure that you all are filling that out if you have not. They're not going to leave you hanging. We're all in this together, and we want to make sure that we're all reaching that accessibility. But at the same time, they don't know what they don't know. So please help them know what they need to know. And then Jennifer is going to, I'm gonna turn it over to her, and she might have some things to say.
I wanted to add too that once you receive the link for your new toolkits, which will include logos, logos will be separated for print digital, and Microsoft. So it is extremely important that we did this because we are updating our printing codes and everything. So it will be very important for you to get rid of any logo you have everywhere, the whole department wide. Get rid of your old logos because it's going to cause problems when it comes to printing if you don't. And I will be, as soon as we get a template done, a toolkit done, it will be uploaded in the same place where you get your toolkits right now. And so we will let you know that that one has been updated. You can pull them down then. And then once we have completed all of the whole 377 hours worth of work, there will be a new website, a toolkit website available so that you can pick your department and only have to go through your department stuff. I'm hoping to make this a whole lot more easier for anyone looking for particular logos or particular items.
And one thing I want to also add is, Jennifer, is when you guys have that first toolkit done, we'll probably have you back on this meeting to kind of explain what's in there, you know, and all of the, once we have one completed, to kind of explain what other people can expect as you guys get some completed, if you guys don't mind that. I realize I'm putting you on the spot right now.
Okay.
All right, so that is the update on the accessible templates. I'm going to turn it over to John to talk a little bit more about some of the other stuff we've been looking at.
Okay, so we've recently been looking at, you know, some tools to help augment what we're doing. And we were given the opportunity to test Adobe's API reporting that allows for bulk reporting of like up to 4,000 documents per hour. So we were given the ability to test it on simple single page documents at this point. And while we felt the bulk option for reporting sounded nice, it really didn't do anything to benefit our remediation efforts. So, and the reason that we're saying this is when you open a PDF for remediation in Adobe Acrobat Pro and you click on Prepare for Accessibility, you have access to the exact same report that was being generated using Adobe's API reporting. So, as it was presented to us. So we didn't recommend going any farther with purchasing this as a tool for use because we didn't see the benefit. It was just going to be an additional cost that offered a duplication of effort. Now, if you were just only going to report on those documents and not remediate, it might have been a useful tool. But if, as far as we're concerned, remediation is one of the largest lifts we have right now, and this tool did not seem to be quite as beneficial as we had hoped. So, Microsoft Forms. Everybody loves forms these days. FormStack, print forms, PDF forms, you name it. There's a form for everything out there in what we do. So recently, Microsoft Forms has been conversed about a bit, and it is another accessible HTML form solution that we have access to. So is it a true alternative? Here are the good points with it. All users with a Microsoft 365 license, which is most everyone in the state, have access. Each form, or each user can have up to 400 forms, and the forms can be moved to, that are removed to the recycle bin after they're completed, that they still count against that 400 count. So for example, if you've got 350 active forms on a user's account and then 50 of those are, or 50 additional ones are in the recycle bin, that still makes you meet that quota until they are completely removed. There are a limit of 200 questions per form, and you can collect up to 5 million responses for each form. The Microsoft 365 platform is HIPAA compliant, so that's good to know. And you can even print these forms out and they still look like a standard form, like a fillable form. Now, let's go to the not so good news. So here's where it kind of gets a bit weedy. External users, meaning those that do not have an @tn.gov email address, cannot upload a document. They don't want people adding these types of documents to our platform, and they may not be secure, they may not be trustworthy, they may be malicious in intent. So for that reason, external users are not able to add documents to the forms. So if there's a need for supporting documentation on a form from external sources, it's not a good option. At this point, FormStack is a better fit for these types of forms requiring supporting documentation to be included. Forms in Microsoft Forms are tied to the user account that created them and is stored in that user's OneDrive. If that user leaves the state or changes positions or agencies, it can trigger the deletion cycle of their OneDrive data, losing the form. So to avoid this, you can use a licensed service account or attach the form to a Teams team, which potentially causes additional license cost. And if there are any additional questions, please reach out to Jason. His email's included in the slide. He is the one that's kind of overseeing Microsoft Forms, and he was a great point of contact. I talked with him yesterday and got all this information. So that's about the extent of my knowledge on Microsoft Forms. So if you have anything additional, please feel free to reach out to him. Yes, Kara.
One of the reasons why we started looking at Microsoft Forms is because as I've told you all before, we participate in a multi-state collaborative about these accessibility issues. And this is something that many of the other states are moving towards. Also because of the fact that it, as John said, it kind of looks and prints like an actual form. So for those, for form lovers, for PDF lovers, this still, when it prints, has the look and feel of a form that we thought more people could get on board with this. And since it's already available in our Microsoft Office suite, it does, and is HIPAA compliant, would be a tool that could be used. Trying to just make sure that as we move forward on accessibility, we're considering all options. And when other states are seeing success with some of these, it's also something the federal government is using as well. That we're bringing these options to you all as items for consideration. So I really appreciate John's research on this and working with the STS team and Jason to kind of get our questions answered. But this is, knowing those two things, this could be a benefit for some folks when it comes to moving forward on HTML forms, especially for people who like forms to look like forms. So I'll leave it at that.
And, one other thing to point is if your agency or division department doesn't have a FormStack account and they do have Microsoft 365, there's no additional cost. It's included in the Microsoft 365 license that they give for each user. So that's another potential benefit right there, saving you a little bit. It depends on your needs as to what's going to be the best approach. But if it works, great. Awesome. And like I said, you do have to keep in mind that the forms are tied to individual users' accounts. So if you have any other additional questions and how that is applied or, how we can possibly work around that, you may want to reach out to Jason to see, if they can come up with an additional solution or maybe some other alternative route to take when creating these forms. All right. So this past week was an exciting week when it comes to accessibility. There was a little activity on the federal level in regard to a doubling down on accessibility from the government's viewpoint. There was an executive order that was issued, which I'm going to discuss here in a little bit. So I did want to preface this by saying the next few slides, or the next several slides, have a lot of information of where we are, where it came from, and what we're moving to as far as accessibility is concerned. So there's multiple things that are coming together here to create this presentation, but also this convergence of accessibility on the federal, state, and local level and how it's going to end up affecting us down the road. So this is, I'm prefacing this by saying what we know is set in stone. There are some unknowns as far as timelines and things of that nature, but this is what it's looking like from today moving forward. So this is a convergence of initiatives that is coming together. So here's a little history. Web accessibility from the WCAG 1.0 to today's standards. The WCAG or WCAG emerged in 1999 as 1.0, and it established the first international standard for web accessibility with 14 guidelines focused primarily on HTML accessibility. This framework was pioneering as it introduced the concept of priority levels, priority 1, 2, and 3, and provided specific checkpoints for making web content accessible to people with disabilities. However, web technologies rapidly evolved beyond just static HTML to include dynamic content, multimedia, and mobile applications. 1.0's technology-specific approach became increasingly inadequate, necessitating a fundamental reconceptualization of how accessibility standards should be structured. 2.0 was released in December of 2008 after nearly a decade of development. And again, it revolutionized the standards by introducing technology agnostic principles that could adapt to emerging technologies. The 4 foundational principles were perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust, or POUR. They replaced technology-specific checkpoints with testable success criteria organized into 3 conformance levels, A, AA, and AAA. This structure of principles, guidelines, and success criteria created a stable framework that remained unchanged for a decade, becoming the global standard for digital accessibility and being incorporated into legislation worldwide, including Section 508 in the United States and EN 301549 in Europe. So the pace of technological change eventually outstripped 2.0's coverage, leading to 2.1, which was released in June of 2018. This added 17 new success criteria addressing mobile accessibility, low vision, and cognitive disabilities while maintaining backward compatibility with 2.0. 2.2 was finalized in October of 2023 and continued this incremental approach by adding 9 more additional success criteria, and it removed 1 to better support users with cognitive
I'll definitely do
disabilities.
that. I'll go ahead and do the phone call. That way I make sure I'm getting the right person on the email.
Sorry about that. To better support users with cognitive disabilities and improve mobile accessibility. Now, while these updates address critical gaps, they operated within the constraints of the existing POUR framework, leading to increasing recognition that more fundamental changes were needed, particularly for cognitive accessibility, usability testing, and emerging technologies, which is setting the stage for the paradigm shift that WCAG 3.0 is going to represent. So web accessibility standards are undergoing their most significant transformation right now. Since the original guidelines were established, WCAG 3.0 represents a fundamental paradigm shift from binary pass-fail to outcome-based scoring that better reflects real-world user experiences. This evolution addresses critical gaps in cognitive accessibility, usability for implementators, and adaptability to emerging technologies that have become increasingly apparent as digital ecosystems have evolved beyond traditional web content. The draft standard, which is currently in working draft status, introduces a completely new conformance model, organizational structure, and evaluation methodology while maintaining the core mission of making digital content accessible to people with disabilities. Rather than incremental updates, this represents a ground-up reconceptualization of how accessibility should be measured and achieved in modern digital environments. So 2.1 uses a 4-layer hierarchy, principles, guidelines, success criteria, and techniques based on the POUR structure that has served as a global standard for over a decade. 3.0 abandons this hierarchy entirely for a user-centered approach organized as guidelines, requirements, and methods. This new structure uses decision trees and functional categories grouped by disability types, making guidelines much more intuitive for non-technical stakeholders. This change reflects extensive research identifying the rigid 2-point whatever hierarchy as a fundamental barrier to usability and maintenance. So the scoring system that we currently have is a binary pass-fail approach, and it requires meeting every applicable success criterion where a single failure prevents conformance regardless of the overall accessibility quality. 3.0 introduces a 0 to 4-point scoring scale with bronze, silver, and gold levels, where bronze requires a 3.5 over a 4.0 overall with no critical errors. This system acknowledges partial success and incentivizes continuous improvement rather than treating accessibility as a binary checklist. Organizations can achieve recognition for substantial accessibility efforts while working towards full conformance, creating more realistic adoption pathways. 2.1 relies primarily on atomic testing, which is element by element evaluation that focuses on the technical compliance rather than real world usability. 3.0 introduces dual testing, combining atomic tests for technical compliance with the holistic test for usability evaluation through expert assessment and user testing. This addresses the critical disconnect where users successfully navigate technically non-compliant sites while encountering barriers on sites that pass all success criteria. This new framework is going to evaluate the complete user journey through items, views, task flows, and products, rather than the isolated page-level compliance. 2.1's documentation acknowledges that it will not address every user need, particularly in the cognitive language and learning areas, with only 4 to 6 of the 70 proposed cognitive criteria included. 3.0's outcome-based approach accommodates subjective accessibility needs previously excluded by strict testability requirements. The new scoring system allows for a graduated evaluation of cognitive features that don't fit binary criteria, with functional category scoring ensuring equal treatment alongside visual, auditory, and motor needs. Plain language replaces pseudo-legalese, and the flexible structure enables frequent updates without complete guideline revisions. So this expanded scope does encompass the entire digital ecosystem. 2.1 focuses primarily on web content accessed through browsers with limited coverage of mobile apps, desktop software, and emerging technologies. 3.0 explicitly covers web content, mobile apps, desktop software, wearables, IoT devices, and virtual augmented reality experiences. These guidelines integrate content from the User Agent Accessibility Guidelines and the Authoring Tool Accessibility Guidelines, creating a unified accessibility guidance across the entire digital ecosystem. User agents include browsers, extensions, media players, readers, and other applications that render web content. Authoring tools are content tools that are used in the production of more accessible content by all authors. Technology-specific methods provide detailed implementation guidance for different platforms while maintaining platform-independent outcome requirements. Just a side note here, these other two guidelines that I'm showing on this slide, they're from the same W3C consortium that has established the WCAG that we're currently adhering to. So a plain language approach improves global accessibility. So 2.1's complex technical language creates significant barriers for international adoption, with Japanese developers citing translation complexity as a reason for avoiding ARIA implementation. 3.0 addresses these barriers through comprehensive plain language rewriting that removes complex sentences, clearly defines technical terms, and uses user-centered outcome statements. Terminology evolves to be more intuitive. Success criteria becomes outcomes. Techniques becomes methods. And level A, AA, AAA becomes bronze, silver, and gold. This approach makes requirements more accessible for managers, designers, developers, and regulators without any accessibility expertise. Addressing systemic maintenance challenges. 2.1's rigid structure prevents timely updates with standard, adding only 17 new success criteria despite extensive industry feedback identifying gaps. 3.0 introduces a modular structure enabling independent method updates while maintaining stable outcome requirements. Maturity indicators are going to be placeholder, exploratory, developing, refining, and mature to support iterative development rather than monolithic releases. This framework supports flexible conformance claims for specific features or task flows, with assertion-based conformance recognizing organizational processes as evidence of sustainable accessibility culture. So addressing depreciated and modified approaches, 3.0 replaces the binary pass-fail model with a graduated scoring and expands on page-centric evaluation to encompass task flows and complete products. Level A, AA, AAA conformance terminology disappears in favor of bronze, silver, and gold levels that better communicate quality to stakeholders. The strict testability requirements relaxes to accommodate important accessibility needs that can't be objectively measured, particularly cognitive features. Technology-neutral techniques are supplemented with technology-specific methods, acknowledging that optimal implementation often requires platform-specific approaches. So 3.0 development continues, with completion expected in 2028 at the earliest, and likely extending into 2030 or later for final W3C recommendation status. The current focus involves advancing 2 to 3 guidelines from refining or mature statuses by 2025, with detailed timelines expected in this upcoming month. The transition signals an evolution from compliance-focused accessibility toward effectiveness-based evaluation, prioritizing user experience over technical conformance. Organizations should continue 2.1, 2.2 AA compliance while familiarizing themselves with outcome-based thinking and investing in user testing capabilities. With that wrapping up the history, how we got to where we are today, today's standards, and what the look at tomorrow's standards are, I wanted to give you an idea and a better understanding as to why some of the decisions are being made the way they are. So next we have the 21st Century IDEA and M23-22. This was an executive order that was issued under the Biden administration, and it's strengthening the federal government's approach, which is trickling down to us. Now, the next 2 sections of slides are going to be geared more towards the federal government. But as we all know, these changes and these laws that they're pushing end up falling down on us because government is government, no matter where you are, whether it's local, state, or federal. We just have larger audiences based on what level you're in. So accessibility is going to be across the board for everybody. So I just wanted to preface with saying that in regards to the next 2 sections of slides. So the 21st Century IDEA and the OMB M23-22 mandates comprehensive modernization of federal digital services. It establishes accessibility as a core requirement. It's no longer an add-on. It requires that all federal websites meet Section 508, 2.0 AA as a baseline. It recommends adopting current standards where possible and creates framework for digital-first government while maintaining non-digital alternatives. It's a design-first accessibility approach. You build accessibility in from the start with universal design mandate, maximizing access and usability for all users from inception. There's no retrofitting. Accessibility must be built into the earliest planning stages with a user-centered focus, design based on actual user needs and not assumptions. And it moves beyond compliance, which is a commitment to usability, not just technical standards. It is inclusive by default. Experiences are usable without specialized adaptation. So there's 4 layers of their comprehensive testing requirements. Automated scanning, which is continuous integration into the development workflows. Manual testing, which is human review for issues automation cannot detect. User testing is testing with people with disabilities. And assistive technology testing, which is validation with screen readers, voice controls, etc. The key requirement here is agencies must compensate research participant to ensure diverse perspectives. And this is something we have encountered lately, and I believe Carol will go into more on that here after a bit. Content and language standards. Making information accessible to all means using plain language at an 8th grade reading level for general public content. The conversational tone you want to have. You want it to be active and avoid using jargon or legalese. Translation requirements. Human translation for limited English proficiency users. HTML first. Default to web formats over PDFs and other traditional file formats. Structured content. Proper headings and semantic markup for screen readers. Mobile and multi-channel requirements. You're meeting the users where they are. Mobile first by design. Majority of users now access services on all government sites, whether this is local, state, or federal, via their mobile devices. Responsive across all devices, functional on smartphones, tablets, and all screen sizes. Performance optimized. Consider users with limited bandwidth or access to internet. Multi-channel service, which is web, phone, in-person, and mail options. Mandatory non-digital alternatives. No one is excluded from governmental services, period. Digital forms and authentication, reducing barriers to service access. So the forms transformation is what we're currently undergoing. It's a digital first design with paper derived from digital, which means you can create a digital form in FormStack, Microsoft Forms, or just a standard HTML form, given the capability that we have to do that. But using print styles or style guides that when you go to print that digital form, it automatically turns into a paper ready, print ready paper form for use offline. You want to include save progress and return capability. Pre-populate known information such as name, address, phone number. You want to have accessible error messages that are using plain language. Accessible authentication. So password manager compatibility is going to be required. No forced password rotation. No automatic account deactivation, and accessible multi-factor authentication options. The implementation timeline was phased. So immediate 30 to 180 days from September of 2023. Identify digital experience leads, inventory public-facing websites, access top 80% traffic sites, identify self-service optimization opportunities. And this prioritization is based on the highest public impact and transaction volume, highest traffic websites, severity of accessibility issues, form supporting benefits and services. This is how the federal government is approaching everything, which is what we're currently doing. In our approach, we're having to look and figure out, okay, what's the most important that we have to hit first, and then move based on prioritization from there. Accountability and continuous improvement is ensuring long-term success. So public accessibility statements is required on all federal websites. We have one on our own, and we're going to be updating that language shortly. User feedback mechanisms, reporting gives them the ability to report issues and satisfaction levels. Regular content reviews, a minimum of every 3 years, you need to be taking a look at your website and the content on it to make sure it is still current, available, accessible, and usable. You want to employ data-driven decisions. Analytics, user research will drive improvements across the board. Transparency requirements, clear labeling. .gov domains must be accessible and transparent. So everything we do that we have public facing has to be transparent. That's why we say in AEM, if you have documents on there that are not linked from a web page, take those documents off of there, because it's opening you up to liability for one, but also it's not being completely transparent, because those documents and forms are still accessible through other means like Google search or other search engines. You want to build trust. Annual reporting, progress on modernization requirements. You want to report that. So here are the key takeaways for the 21st century IDEA and the M23-22. So it's from compliance to inclusion. The 21st century IDEA and the M23-22 transform federal accessibility from a compliance checkbox to a fundamental design principle. Success is measured not by meeting technical standards, but by whether people with disabilities can independently access and complete government services with the same ease as those without those disabilities. The core principle here is digital transformation cannot leave anyone behind. So America by Design. This was an executive order that was issued last week from the White House. And this is improving our nation through better design. It creates an America by Design initiative for federal digital modernization. It does establish a national design studio and a chief design officer position. Currently applies only to federal agencies, no direct state or local requirements at this time. They have a 3-year implementation period, which expires in August of 2028, and it reinforces existing accessibility laws rather than creating new ones. So here is where the government is doubling down on these standards and why it's imperative that we get on par with what we're offering our constituents across the state. So they are doubling down. It's reinforcement for accessibility. It mandates compliance. All federal agencies must achieve government-wide compliance by July 4th of 2026. Section 508 requirements are reinforced through the 21st century IDEA reference. The U.S. Web Design System Update mandates improvements to the templating and the design of overall sites and services for the federal government level, which is targeting the WCAG 2.1 AA. There is no reduction in standards, and implementation must maintain and not compromise accessibility. Design cannot override access. Aesthetic improvements cannot conflict with disability requirements. So these are tough guidelines that are being reinforced moving forward. And again, it's only a matter of time before these standards converge on us. We are currently at the initial, the WCAG 2.1 that ADA Title II requires, which is a federal law that not only initially affected just the federal government, but has now moved to state and local governments as well. So that's why we're taking a look down the road, because this is what's coming at us. This is what we have to prepare for now. If we can go ahead and make the preparations now, that transition that's coming will be a whole lot easier and we'll be ahead of the game. So here's their structure and timeline. They're going to create accountability for accessibility by having new leadership structure. The chief design officer is going to oversee the federal digital modernization. The National Design Studio is going to coordinate agency improvements. The GSA updates the U.S. Web Design System with an accessibility focus, and there's their deadlines. Again, this doesn't apply to us today, but it will. So indirect benefits without direct mandates. This is how it impacts us now. There are no requirements, but potential benefits. Federal design improvements potentially influence state and local practices. They enhance the enhanced U.S. Digital services that they're putting in place with their styles and sites and practices could provide better accessibility tools for us. Vendor capabilities are improved through federal contracts, and best practice development benefits at all levels. Separate compliance remains. State, local ADA Title II, WCAG 2.1 Level AA is required by April of 2026 for us. Federal Section 508, currently WCAG 2.0, is moving to meet the ADA Title II at Standard 2.1. There's no preemption or coordination between frameworks, but there is so much overlap when looking at the entire landscape of accessibility as it's being played out politically and by becoming laws. There's so much overlap that our current approach is great. We just need to make sure we maintain focus on these digital first approaches that we're having and considerations when it comes to creating new documents, files, and the transition from the traditional formats to more accessible formats, because it is really going to impact tomorrow. So accessibility through design excellence. These key design principles are supporting accessibility. All of these are offering a user experience focus so better design inherently improves accessibility. Standardization benefits, consistent patterns will help all users navigate. A mobile-first approach with responsive design serves diverse access needs. Plain language simplifies content and it benefits cognitive accessibility. Performance optimization means faster sites help users with older devices and slower connections. A critical constraint, design improvements cannot reduce accessibility compliance. So here's where the standards alignment lies. Section 508, this is the current federal landscape. Section 508 WCAG 2.0 level AA is their minimum. The 21st Century IDA recommends WCAG 2.1, 2.2. The U.S. Design and Development that targets WCAG 2.1 AA. So here's WCAG 3.0 considerations. Order predates availability. Earliest expected is 2028. The updates to the government services could position earlier and easier transition. Focus on user experience aligns with the 3.0 philosophy. Here are the opportunities for advancement and how design excellence drives accessibility. Direct federal improvements. Again, this is federal, but this is what's eventually going to be coming down the road to us. So I'm trying to prepare everyone by taking this look ahead. And I know it's a lot, and they're like, well, it doesn't apply now. We have time. Yes, but we don't want to be here again 2 years from now. We want to be ahead of the game, already prepared, already making strides toward meeting this and exceeding it moving forward. We want Tennessee to become an example state to go by, not one to ridicule or penalize with legal liability. So how design excellence drives accessibility. It's standardized, accessible design patterns with regular updates without legislative changes and a focus on a holistic user experience. That right there is a new best practice. I can promise you that will become a best practice moving forward within the federal government, as it's going to eventually trickle down to us by becoming a best practice for us. The spillover benefits, market pressure for accessible vendor solutions means we're going to have better vendors, access to vendors who are more adequately prepared and accessible for the solutions that we are taking from them or purchasing from them. Shared contractor expertise across all government levels. The USWDS is open source and it's going to be available for all so that we can take their design and style guides and we can adapt them for our uses, saving us development time and resources moving forward. Demonstration of cost-effective accessibility. They're going to be breaking barriers and really pushing the envelope. So we're going to be able to ride their coattails and see what works and what works really well. So America by Design, the key takeaways are design and accessibility as partners. It reinforces and doesn't replace existing accessibility requirements. Currently, it is a federal only scope, but it does create market effects benefiting everyone. Their deadline is July 2026, which aligns with state local ADA compliance dates. That's something that they elected to follow. Design excellence must enhance and not compromise accessibility. The bottom line, while not creating new accessibility mandates, this order strengthens federal commitment to accessible design and creates resources that benefit the entire government digital ecosystem, state and local governments included. Come on. The accessibility transformation timeline. This is 3 waves of change. Wave 1 is immediate implementation, and it shows what's currently ongoing. Wave 2 is expanded compliance. That is 2027 to 2028. Wave 3, which is the next generation standard from 2028 to 2030. This is a rough estimated breakdown of when we can expect these things to really kick off. So from compliance to user experience, how current initiatives prepare for WCAG 3.0. 21st century idea alignment with 3.0 principles. User research with people with disabilities is holistic testing. Plain language requirements meet cognitive accessibility. Multi-channel service delivery is expanded scope. Continuous improvement mandates. That's a maturity model. Data-driven decisions is outcome-based scoring. The executive order design focus supports transition, user experience prioritization. It does match the 3.0 philosophy. Updates to digital services can incorporate emerging standards. Standardization enables consistent scoring implementation, and performance focus aligns with functional categories. So building the foundation today, practical steps toward future standards, immediate actions. Implement comprehensive testing now. Don't wait for 3.0 to begin holistic testing. Start measuring actual user task completion and build relationships with disability communities. Invest in design systems. Leverage the digital services that the U.S. government's improvements are going to include from the executive order. We can learn from them. We can build off of those and really simplify our approach. Create component libraries. Now, this is more the developer focused side, but again, it applies statewide. Create component libraries that are meeting current and future standards, and you want to document accessibility patterns for reuse. Again, you want to develop outcome-based metrics, move beyond pass-fail to graduated scoring, measure user satisfaction alongside compliance, and track accessibility improvements over time. You want to address cognitive accessibility, implement plain language beyond minimum requirements, design for diverse cognitive abilities, and test with users having cognitive abilities. Organizational readiness strategy, preparing your team for these evolving standards going forward. People and skills, train teams on user-centered design principles. Hire accessibility specialists and UX researchers. Establish disability inclusion advisory groups. Process and governments, create accessibility review gates in development. Implement continuous monitoring versus point-in-time audits, and then establish cross-functional accessibility teams. You continue by working with the technology and tools, adopting automated testing integrated into your pipelines, your development pipelines. Implement analytics for accessibility metrics. Deploy assistive technology testing environments. The whole culture and mindset needs to shift from avoiding lawsuits to serving all users. You want to celebrate accessibility achievements and improvements. Make accessibility everyone's responsibility, not just IT's or communications in this point. Here is where they converge. And this is why the next 2 years is critical for accessibility. A unique alignment of these federal requirements and laws, it's a regulatory convergence. So federal, state, and local deadlines are clustering between 2026 and 2027. This creates a momentum and shared urgency across digital governments worldwide, not just for the US, Europe, other countries, they're also doing the same thing. And this enables the economies to scale in these solutions. Tool maturity. The WCAG 2.2 stable is now stable and widely understood, and the 3.0 draft is providing future direction. Now, again, 3.0 is not a requirement for us, but it is what's coming down at us. 2.2 is currently not the standard we're adhering to. 2.1 is where we're at, but 2.2 is already stable and it is widely adapted. So market readiness. Vendors are developing comprehensive solutions with accessibility expertise growing in the workforce. User expectations are driving demand. Organizational awareness, leadership understanding accessibility as an innovation driver, budget allocations reflecting priority, and success stories demonstrate your return on this investment. So here's what it looks like. When digital government transformation is complete, universal access. Every government service is accessible through preferred channels. A seamless experience where users move between federal, state, and local services without any barriers. It's proactive inclusion. Accessibility is built into every new initiative from day one. Measured outcomes include success defined by user task completion and not technical compliance. Continuous evolution. Standards and practices adapt to emerging technologies. So here's the bottom line on this. By 2030, accessibility is not going to be a separate requirement, but an integral part of how government designs and delivers all digital services. The convergence of 3.0, 21st Century IDEA, and the Design Excellence Initiative creates the foundation for truly inclusive government services that work for everyone. Go ahead, Kara.
I just knew that you were at the end of it. And I kind of wanted to just say, if a lot of people are looking at this and being like, oh my gosh, here is what we want to take away. Yes, we are working on 2.1 right now. But when we're making those decisions about what we're going to do, whether it's 2.1, 2.2, or all of this, I think that we all get in the mindset, and it's easy to do because all we're trying to do is be like, we need to meet this standard. But when we're making some of those decisions, we need to be thinking about, is this a decision that that will tide us over right now, or will this be a decision that tides us over for the future? What General Services is doing right now with the cleanup of their templates, they're thinking about not only short-term compliance, but they're also thinking about long-term accessibility. So those are the kind of things we need to be thinking about, because I think that there was this thought, and I'm not saying I think it was from a lot of these accessibility folks also, that in different states, like, oh, this administration is going to come and potentially, because things change from administration to administration on the federal government, just like they do here. But this executive order last week really shows that if people are expecting a reverse in stance on the federal level from this, that's not happening. So, or if it does, it's not happening right now. And if we're going to preparing with the idea that this is going to be reversed at some point, we will find ourselves way behind when it does not get reversed. So really just asking folks to really be very considerate of the steps you're taking. This is a serious thing. This is something that is we're moving towards things in the federal level, and we want to do the best job we can, even though it's not required, even though some of it's required and not all of it's required on the state, to thinking about what's next. Also, when we're making the decisions for what meets our needs right now, we're also thinking about what meets our needs next. One thing I'll also add is when the digital accessibility coordinator comes on, this is someone that I do expect will be doing some user experience type of work to make sure that we're incorporating that into our workflows on an enterprise level. Because after that, what I shared with you last week, it really got me to thinking about the fact that we needed some type of user experience here to make sure that we're all heading towards not only that what meets the standard, but what's next level of compliance. So I just wanted to kind of sum that all up and then let you all know that, this isn't going away. And we really need to be thinking not only about how do we meet our needs right now, but how do we not find ourselves in the same place 2 years from now as well.
Yeah. And I know this was a lot of information to take in, and I tried to summarize as much as I could. There is a lot of moving pieces when it comes to accessibility across the government landscape. These standards that we are currently adhering to, we can look at this now and see, okay, now that we know that not only do we have ADA Title II, we have the 21st Century IDEA and the OMB 23-22, and now the America by Design initiative from the current administration. It really reinforces our efforts here and what we're doing and how we need to approach this, because there is so much overlap when it comes to these. And I've said this before, there's a lot of overlap in these orders and laws and standards. The biggest takeaway is our approach now needs to focus on providing that digital first experience, improving accessibility for all users, regardless of age or ability. And that does mean employing some of these user focus groups that we may be, bringing on in the not too distant future to test our website, our applications, our services that we're currently offering, our documents. They will be able to help us glean some very invaluable information going forward on our approach. And again, we're not alone in this. The Multi-State Collaborative is facing the same thing, and their approach is quite similar to ours in most states. Federally, if you look now at these new federal, the doubling down on these standards and these accessibility requirements, they are in the same boat. They want to make sure that we are not leaving anyone out or anyone behind. So with that said, we took this opportunity today to help lay the groundwork so that everybody can really see, wow, there is a whole lot more to this coming down the pike that we have to prepare for. And now's the time to do it, not tomorrow. So with that, I will go ahead and start going through the chat. That way we can get everything addressed as best we can. So Dean asked, can we get a memo from DGS Authority, maybe General Holmes? It says, you are instructed to get rid of unbranded templates and old logos. I am glad we're doing this for sure, but we got pushback now from programs who really love that shade of purple on their brochure. Yes, sadly, there's a lot of old design way of thinking that we need to move away from, and getting people on board with change is a little difficult.
We'll take that. I know our printing services people are on here and possibly Michelle. So we'll let them determine whether or not that's something that they can do. But yes, we understand that people really like certain things that we want them to not use anymore, like fillable PDFs, or that shade of purple. Hey, John, I'll take this next one.
Okay.
Thanks for the update on the Adobe solution. Do you have any other updates on where we are on our research for enterprise tools for ADA? April, I don't know if she's on here, but she did say that they are receiving deliverables from some of the proofs of concept that they had asked for. And hopefully we'll have a good update on some of those. But there are several that are out there right now, and they expect to receive the deliverables from that to see what, whether, things work the way they say they're going to work, and so forth. One other really quickly thing that I wanted to share with you all: when STS did an update to the documents dashboard, they found that the number of documents in AEM was virtually unchanged at 171,000. If you do not need something in the website, we need to be removing it from AEM. Now, I know many people might be waiting for archiving solutions, etc., but there are two prongs here. Get rid of the stuff you don't need, and the stuff that people feel like needs to be on a website, can be that meet archive criteria, can be archived, and we'll come up with a solution. But it does appear that the getting rid of the stuff you don't need is not happening. So really, once again, please approach the content on your website with a very critical eye. We are doing so. Kathleen just convinced someone to not link to 3 years of a quasi podcast on our website. So we are working. We are working hard to convince our users that the certain things that they felt like were absolutely necessary to be linked to on our website are no longer necessary. So same with just please do that and approach stuff with a critical eye. John, sorry, I meant to bring that up earlier and I had not. That's
perfectly fine. That question was a perfect segue into that. Dean says, does this mean Adobe Acrobat is eventually going to give a number rating during its prepare for accessibility cycle instead of a pass-fail designation? Eventually, I would assume yes, but I can't speak on behalf of Adobe and how their approach is going to be handled in that instance. I do know that testing tools coming down the pike do include 3.0's potential update, and their approach does include the number rating as well as what level. So you'll have the bronze, silver, and gold instead of like a numerical gauge or just pass fail.
And the bottom line is if people want to continue to do business with the federal government, they're going to need to make, they're going to, and government in general, changes will probably need to happen for accessibility. Because of the fact, in fact, April pointed us to a webinar that was done in Texas about educating vendors about accessibility and how to fill out ACRs and VPATs, because of the fact that if vendors want to do business with states, they're going to need to know how to do this stuff. So it is something that's being really looked at by a lot of folks too, and third-party vendors are responsible for making, the burden of compliance is on us, but they're responsible for making their products accessible.
Yep. Allison says, given that another iteration is being developed, is there any thought that the deadline for 2.1 to 2.2 will be extended for compliance? Unfortunately, no. I don't know that that is going to be something. I've not seen anything trying to be pushed through legislation. That would be something that would have to amend Title II of the ADA, and I don't foresee that happening. It would be great if they gave us another year. That would really be great. But I'm afraid that right now is not even on the radar. So it is up to us to make sure we're meeting that deadline that we currently have. All right. So, Dean, aren't all of these criteria in the domain of Department of Office of Compliance to govern implementation and reporting for the whole of the department? Or rather, wouldn't all of these criteria be? Yeah. Yeah, I think so. It's making me think. I'm afraid I don't have a full answer on that. I will move on, but I will have to put some more time into my thought process on that, Dean. So I apologize. Let's see here. Clancy, thank you for the details. The details provide a roadmap on accessibility business practices now and the future. Yes. Again, this is, giving you guys a head up because what we have coming down the pike is a lot. And we are at the tip of the iceberg. But as we know, with all icebergs, and that metaphor that gets thrown around so much is, there's only so much above the surface of the water, and then the rest of the iceberg is below the surface. So this iceberg will, within the next 5 years, probably be hovering above the water the way it looks. All right. Let's see. Can we leverage your expertise on upcoming ADA projects? Yes. By all means, we are here to help and assist in any way we can. We want to, moving forward, be able to help move accessibility forward for the state of Tennessee. Like I said earlier, establishing Tennessee as a state for an example to go by, not one to ridicule or laugh at because of the liability that we are incurring. So we want to make sure we are pushing towards that high mark excellence. We want to strive for that. So not saying that we bring that to the table, but our goal is to ultimately see every agency and department providing accessible, fully accessible digital services across the state. So by all means, feel free to reach out to our team. As it is shown here on the slide, you can reach out to the ada.initiative@tn.gov email address for any questions, comments, or concerns, or you can reach out to myself personally. Once we have the digital accessibility coordinator installed into their position, We will have their information here and they will be leading these. They will be the point of contact, but always keep up with updates on the accessibility website shown, teamtn.gov/accessibility. There was an update made to the website this past week. I did put the upcoming schedule, which currently there's a lot to be determined on there on the meetings menu item. But there you will be able to see upcoming meeting topics as we fill those out. And again, if there is anything we can do to assist, if we don't have the immediate answer, we will research it. We will find out what we can and get back with you. We want to do everything we can to help in this transition because it's a lot and it's a lot to wrap your head around. So with that, I do see we are over by 5 minutes. I do apologize. I knew this was going to be a lengthier presentation. I want to give you your day back. I apologize for intruding by a few extra minutes. So with that, we hope everyone has a wonderful day. By all means, reach out if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. And yeah, great week, everybody.